You won't believe the incredible find this man made in his backyard electrical box. Legends and films often conjure up images of pirates and buried wealth, but Matthew and Maria Colonna Emanuel found out firsthand that fiction can sometimes turn into a startling reality when they dug in their garden. The Emanuel household resided on Staten Island's Todd Hill. They believed for a very long time that an ugly metal object in their garden was simply an electricity box. Matthew Emanuel, his wife Maria, and their kid have been residing in this house for around 4 years. They were intimately familiar with every square inch of their land. But one question remained unsolved. The Emanuels thought the silver box outside their house was just an old cable box, hidden under some trees. However, this box held more than what first appeared, and it had the power to drastically alter their lives. The family had always imagined that the large metal object waiting to be discovered in the rear corner was just an electric box holding the cables for the electric poles. Before Mother Nature got involved, the box was buried so deeply in the ground that nobody gave it any thought. Beneath poison ivy and weeds along a fence around the home was the corroded metal box. Subsequently, a deer approached and consumed 4 feet of the underbrush. Because the destroyed trees were so ugly, Emanuel decided to replace them with bamboo because it is resistant to deer. However, he was oblivious to what he was about to discover. The trees were more susceptible to the weather because of the deer's weakening of them. As winter arrived and the massive snowfall we had this year, several of them collapsed. They had a lot of top players, Emanuel told the Advance. Emanuel used to be proud of his property and wanted to get it back to its previous state, but the trees and plants were in disarray. Upon contacting Bob Foley of Touch the Earth Inc., a gardening firm in New Jersey, he discovered that the box was not actually a box at all. Emanuel and his spouse had been quite annoyed with the power box. The thing was half excavated and destroying the appearance of his beautiful garden. However, the skilled landscapers were shocked to discover that the box held a long-kept secret when they went over to repair their damaged property. The box was now more apparent than it had ever been. What might be inside? The Emanuel family eventually discovered the truth when their curiosity finally got the better of them. Emanuel decided to have a closer look as it was clear that the box hadn't been moved in a long time. The living room, kitchen, and terrace all provided views of the rusting box for the family to see. Foley was keen to get rid of that ugly item since he intended to renovate the garden. He had to get rid of the power box first, but there was a lot more involved than that. With decades of expertise in gardening, Foley has witnessed some pretty strange things in his time in the industry. However, he was unaware that he was going to see something unprecedented in his life. Foley had enough experience working in yards to realize that the large, corroded metal object wasn't an electric box at all. However, the box was in the way and needed to be removed by his staff. Thus, there was no reason to keep everyone waiting around any longer. Emanuel's presumptions were incorrect, as Foley discovered when he lifted the box off the ground and turned it over. However, what may lie within it? The Emanuel family still didn't know what was really kept hidden in the safe. Were there stock certificates, a firearm, or a journal? Why was the safe buried in their yard? Upon eventually opening the package, more questions than answers emerged. The safe was 2 feet in diameter and 1.5 feet in height. It weighed around 100 pounds as well. Luckily, what was inside was even more spectacular. Cash, gold, and jewels were inside the safe. They were aware that none of these items were theirs. What actions were expected of them? The Emanuels and Foley were astonished by their good fortune. Jade earrings and other valuables were discovered inside the safe's resealable plastic bag. The contents of the safe had survived, although some of them had suffered significant damage. Emanuel laid the wet dollar notes out to dry for a few days. While some of the banknotes may still be used, others were irreparably ruined. The Emanuels had $16,000 or so in cash that might be spent. With the additional diamonds, the total came to around $52,000. However, what they found out next garnered international attention. Within the safe were some personal documents and a message, all wrapped in a plastic zipper bag. Emanuel was taken aback upon reading the letter. The piece of paper had an address on it, and Emanuel was going to find out who owned it. Luckily, the place was not too far from his area. He made the decision to visit the address and inquire if anyone was missing anything 2 days after the safe was found. Even though it was the correct thing to do, he was unaware that doing so would involve the police. When Emmanuel knocked on the door, an old woman answered. "I have a strange question for you. Have you ever been robbed?" he said after introducing himself. The old woman was initially perplexed, but after telling him something, an investigation got underway. The elderly mother and her husband were gone on the day after Christmas in 2011, when the claimed ninja thief broke into their home. However, they discovered their safe was gone when they got back. Had Emmanuel found the piece that was missing from an unsolved crime? The elderly couple was afraid they wouldn't get their treasures and paperwork back from the safe, which they thought was taken. Was the safe that had been stolen from them the same one that Emmanuel had found in his backyard in 2011? Robert Costanzo, a cunning burglar known as the Ninja Burglar, took advantage of the Tot Hill area. Over the course of 10 years, he was able to rob over 200 residences in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, thanks to his stealth, which made him an undetected threat. Was he ever located? Costanzo targeted 160 houses on Staten Island's Totty Hill. The community was, to put it mildly, humiliated. However, the ninja was apprehended by authorities in 2015, which calmed everyone down. Michael E. McMahon's office was unable to establish a connection between him and the elderly couple's robbery. Since his methods were almost the same as those of the person who stole the couple's possessions, the police did look into him. The old couple was extended an invitation by the Emmanuel family to come and peruse the items they had discovered. The woman broke down in tears as soon as she saw the jewels. She had been traumatized by losing her priceless possessions for years. She never imagined they would make a full recovery. Would they be able to maintain it, though? The old couple, who had lost their valuables a few years prior, were made to smile by the Emmanuel family. However, their response to inquiries about why they had returned the contents of the safe was straightforward. It wasn't even a question. The woman told CNN station WCBS that it wasn't ours, to which Emmanuel responded, "The reward is karma. Good vibes."